Hey everyone, today's video is going to be quite special. In today's video, I'm not going to make a super polished and edited video. I'm going to make a raw and unfiltered video of the process I go through making a shot from the beginning all the way to the end. You're going to see every single step I take to get to the result. You're going to see my mistakes, you're going to see my failures. I don't believe in the word failures, because failure is just a step you take to go to the next step. And then each step you take is going to lead you to the end result. And don't hang on to anything or any prior decisions you made. You might have an idea, but don't get too attached. Just keep creating, keep letting it organically flow until you get to the result you need. I'm quite excited to start this video with you. So let's get started. So yeah, this is a more raw, unfiltered video of me, how I'm creating this shot. I wanted to show you a more raw, unfiltered version of my creative process with all the so-called failures, as some would call it, but just as I would say it, it's just steps towards getting the result that you want. So first in my maps folder, I create the name of the map, and then I go into my cinematics folder as I label it, and I create a shot. I call it nights underscore 0010 underscore 0010 01, and that's a pretty basic naming convention, and I set the sequence to 24 frames per second since that's the default frames per second for cinematic shots. And I'm making sure to turn on the key button in the sequencer, so every time I move anything there will be an automatic key. And since it's a bit unfiltered, you're gonna see me mess around quite a bit, since, as I said, this is a raw, more unfiltered process, and I'm creating my default setups with the fog in there and my skylight and my directional light, where I'm setting my default settings, as you can see. And remember to turn on the volumetric fog. I'm just checking all this is on. There's going to be a lot of pauses here where I'm not going to say anything, is because there's not much to say. I'm just going through the process, and you can see here I am putting on the infinite unbound on the post-process volume, and I'm setting my exposure settings to how I like it on the post-process volume. And I'm putting the sun in a bit random place because I'm pretty early in the process of my shot. I have these Megascan assets that I've downloaded that I'm using and I'm testing out. So I'm dragging in this tundra terrain. It's massive. I'm trying to check if that's what I'm looking for this shot. And as you can see, I'm still just exploring around, looking what I have. And I'm dragging in my new tundra terrain. I'm checking it out, see maybe that's good for what I'm looking for. Trying a little bit out. I'm turning my viewport around to try and get an idea of the angle and if it will work. And right now I'm looking for the horse, so I can drag it in and get an idea of the scale of the horse versus the landscape. And I found the horse blueprint. And there it is. It's quite small compared to the landscape, which is fine. This is kind of what I'm looking for. So now I'm just moving a little bit my landscape around to take a look. And I'm moving I decided I was not super happy with the tundra landscape, so I'm just using its default landscape now. And for now I'm creating a folder for these light elements to keep things a little bit more organized. And I call it an obvious choice, lighting, and that's where I put all my lighting related objects. So now I'm placing the horse to get an idea where I want to put it in the scene. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking for animation for the horse. I'm taking a look to get an idea of like what kind of direction or like what kind of length the horse needs to take for this shot. So I can start blocking it out, my shot. And I'm setting some fieldback settings on my camera. That works for me. Everybody can use what they want, but these ones are the ones that I like to work with. 36 in the width and 20.25 for the height. So now I have the horse in the scene. I haven't started animation yet, but I'm just trying to figure out where I want to have my first frame. And I'm setting out 2 viewports. That works best for me. So I have one cinematic viewport on the right and my perspective on the left. For me, that works quite well and makes for a really efficient workflow. I'm putting down my max bloom because for me, usually that is super aggressive, so I like to take that down. And I usually like to set my convolution to whatever fits the scene, because it's all about what art direction you want to take. There's no infinite answer of what's the correct one. It depends on what you're going for. And as I like to say, creation is a constant flow of revisions. And when you have that mindset, it sets you free. Instead of trying to create something perfect from the beginning, just accept that any form of creation is a constant, ongoing evolution of one step leading to the next. So in that sense, there's no such thing as a mistake or a failure, because every step is a step towards the goal you're gonna end up with. As you can see now, the reins of the horse are not attached, so I'll just do a little quick solution, and that doesn't really seem to work. And somehow these reins, they just keep not really wanting to do what I wanted to do. I'm investigating at the moment, trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm trying to add the animation to whatever part I can find to see what's going on. So this was the solution. I just had to put animation on the saddle. This is not the optimal solution. It would be better to go in and try and solve it in the blueprint, but for now I'm just quickly wanting to block this out, so that's what I'm going for now. I'm looking for the animation of the man on the horse. That's part of this blueprint. I've never used this blueprint before, so this is the first time I'm diving into it, so I'm figuring things out as I go. So now I want to export that animation so I can use it on a different character, on this knight character. So I'm retargeting the animation. I'm creating a new folder where I can put in the new retargeted animation. I did the retarget the character first, and now I'm going to retarget the animation. So I'm going into my asset in my blueprint, and I'm looking for the asset of the knight. And I'm compiling. That looks really weird. So that was not the way to do it. Definitely not. But I'm figuring these out as I go along. So I'm going, okay, let's try and add the gallop animation on that guy and see, does this work? No, it doesn't. So it was not the way. I'm trying to then move it in the scene in the right spot to see, okay, hopefully this will work out. Yeah, it seems like it's kind of working in some ways. Now I'm just tweaking like the small little nice details to get into the right position. I'm now going I'm not going too much into detail because it's not so important from this angle. I'm just still focusing on the big picture of getting the general blocking out of the scene. But now when I have my loop and my character on the horse, I can start moving on. I'm looking into the night now. I want to do a little bit of tweaking of how he looks to make it fit better to what I'm going for. So I'm looking through a list of different materials. And I can see, alright, I don't want a sword, so I disable it. And as you can see, this is me trying to figure this out, this blueprint. And I save a lot because, you know, Unreal has a tendency to crash quite a bit, so I keep making sure that I save as often as possible. And I do a lot of backups usually as well, because once you have a corrupt scene, it's a bit of a nightmare to try and get things to work again. So now I am figuring out the scene length. I set it to 240 frames, so that's around 10 seconds. And now I'm blocking out the distance that I want the horse to ride. And I'm making sure to set the animation to linear, so there's no ease in, ease out animation. And here you can see it's running a little bit too slow. I'm just adjusting the animation to make sure that they are there from the beginning to the end of the shot. So, working on the blocking and the distance. Now I'm kind of happy with the distance that the horse is running, so now I want to work on my camera. I'm testing out different lenses to see which one works best for the shot. So I want this camera that's just linearly trucking forward, and then the light running into the frame, passing the camera. And of course, I like my widescreen shots, so I'm focused on making it widescreen and making sure that the framing fits to that. I know it's a little bit too slow as it comes in, so it doesn't look so dramatic. This way is a bit slow and boring, so I'll just keep adjusting. It's starting to get there, where I'm starting to like the general flow of the shot. Now I'm going to start playing a little bit around with set dressing the shot up. All that matters for me in this shot is what you see in the camera. If you need to cheat, just cheat the best you can. All that matters is what the shot looks like. So I am adjusting and matching things up so it aligns with my view and my camera and what works for this shot. So I'm starting to set dress, and this shot for now is just an idea of my head, and I'm figuring it out as I go. I have a pretty clear idea of what I want, but I'm also allowing myself to explore and just take this shot wherever it takes me. So what I'm doing now is I'm finding different elements from the mega scans that I downloaded. I'm dragging them all into the scene so I can kind of see and compare and see how it looks in the environment. And this is quite unfiltered, as I said, so there's no cutaways. You cannot see my whole process. All the steps I go through to create this shot. So for me, that's quite interesting to watch. I would love to see other artists, how they work, and observe their process. What I'm doing now is I want to create some distant mountains. These megascans are not this size at all, so I'm just scaling away and tweaking and faking it. If it works, it works. I've already made a sketch quickly in my hand before I made this drawing of an idea of a composition. But as I said, I'm not gonna follow it religiously. Here's just the first idea. And I urge you, whenever you can, bring out your sketchbook, make some sketches. It's a really good meditation to just sit and being present with your drawing and just focus on drawing, not try to create a masterpiece. Just sit there and enjoy the process of just drawing. And wherever you learn, whatever you do, even if it seems small, it carries over to other areas. So I'm drawing quite a lot these days, and what I learn from my drawing I carry over to all the other aspects of my creations. The other week I just started playing around with pastel crayons. I've never done that before, and it was actually quite fun to explore, and I actually realized I really like working with that medium. Because with oil, it takes really long time to dry when you paint, which means you have to be really patient, and it's hard to do anything really fast with oil painting, for example, because when you put on a layer, and then you have to wait and wait and wait and wait for it to dry before you can start working on the next. So at least in the way that I'm painting. So that's why I actually like the pastel. And it's a very free-flowing way of drawing or painting. I made this sketch the other day, and it was just less than an hour, but actually I think it turned out pretty cool. And it's just the crayons. So back to the video. I'm still setting up the composition of the shot and creating these kind of distant hills or mountains, and just shaping it as I go along. The shape is probably not going to make a lot of sense in a practical, realistic term, but in the sake of the shot, it works. And that's one thing I also really like about Unreal. It's great for concepts, where if you have to make a painting of this, then sometimes it's actually faster to go in Unreal and try to create something first, a really rough idea of what you want to paint or to create, and then you can see how it works, because you also have lights, and and it's easy and fast with the megascans to quickly plug something together that you can see how it works. And then if you want to make a painting, you can use that as a base to paint from, or if you want to make a moving cinematic image like what we're doing now, then Unreal is really great for that, as you can see. And as I said before, with any form of creation, every step is a step in the right direction, so there's no mistakes, there's no errors. As I say in my book, failure is not the enemy, it's part of the process. So yeah, I think in general failure is a bad word, but we have it in our vocabulary now, so we have to use it sometimes. And I keep shaping the hills as we go along to what I would like to see. And it's slowly starting to take shape. We are getting some weird shadows now because these hills are just one-sided, but for now I'm ignoring that. Actually not, I'm actually going in and fixing it now. There you go. Sometimes just go ahead and do things. Don't hesitate. Don't postpone things to do it later. Just do it. So that's what I'm doing now. It's like, okay, let's just get this done. And I'm happy to see that the shot is starting to take shape. And I keep tweaking the camera as I go along because nothing is set in stone. Just keep tweaking. You know the saying, it ain't over until the fat lady sings. So I keep tweaking the camera, and I'll keep tweaking the camera until we get to the end of the shot. And as you can see, every little step that we take, it keeps progressing the shot, and it's just getting better and better for every little step. I know better is a very subjective term. It's up to whoever watches to determine if they think it's better or not, but yeah, in this case I'm happy to see the shots taking shape. If you would go close to these rocks, it's gonna look really weird, but from the camera it actually works. And I'm trying to play around a little bit with the fog as well. It's an ongoing process. Set dressing, the animation, the camera, the light. I keep being all over the place instead of just getting stuck in one little detail somewhere. That's a very important lesson for when you draw and you paint or sculpt or anything you do. Always keep the overall idea in mind, so you're not focus so much in some detail somewhere, and then when you take a step back and you move on, you can't get anywhere, or you have to redo because you put too much energy in a detail. I see it often in my drawing workshops. I teach drawing, live drawing. I did the mistake myself when I started drawing, live drawing as well, is you start drawing ahead, and then you start drawing the body, and then you realize, oh shit, there's not enough room on the paper for the rest of the body. So you learn to try and first rough it out, rough basic shape, sculpting with your pen. You know, you have the feet, you have the head, you have everything in the paper, so you know, okay, it's going to be in the paper, the composition is good, and then you slowly add more and more detail, but you don't go crazy and just suddenly have a super high detail face and then the rest of the body is just white and there's nothing there. It's the idea of just keep working all over the drawing all the time, and the same here with any creation. I like to be all over the drawing and keep matching into each other and match up, so I'm not too focused on one detail that I might end up deleting anyways. So now you can see I was playing a little bit around with the sun and the fog to work more into the mood of the shot. I want to create a castle, but I don't want to go in and look for a castle because it's going to be so far in the distance. And you know, if you're going to go to the marketplace and spend money or look for a castle, you end up spending sometimes really long time trying to find that perfect castle that fits to what you need. So often I just like going for super basic shapes and just use those to get what I want and then experiment with. So I'm just starting with this basic cube, putting it on the hill. Well, it seems to make sense. What I'm thinking about now is just in general with creation, don't get too bogged down into, is this the right way to do it or is not the right way to do it? Maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe all the people know better ways to do it. Just set yourself free. You know, it's set yourself free, have fun. You know, you want to create, and don't get too bogged down into details of what is the best way of doing things, or is there other ways, or other people know more than me how to do this, or you know, use whatever you have to get what you need and what you want. If you don't have the skills to go into Blender and model a super detailed, beautiful castle, don't get bogged down. Create it the way that you can and learn what you need to learn in the process. So now I am shaping this castle to see if I can achieve what I want doing this, and if these cubes are gonna be enough. If not, then I'll just have to get more detail later. But for now, before going into detail, as I said earlier, of modeling a super beautiful detailed castle, I'm just blocking some shapes out. This whole shot was inspired by the cinematic I have on my channel with the gladiator running into the arena, and then he's surprised by this huge dragon. The whole shot was inspired by, a mix of Game of Thrones and Gladiator. And I actually wrote a whole story and screenplay of this story. So this shot is basically part of the same universe. Where there's a gladiator that is connected to this dragon, and there's a curse or something deeper in this story between the dragon and the gladiator. As you quickly saw there was a little screenshot popping into the screen. I was looking online for lighting reference, for inspiration, and this kind of popped up in my search. And that shot had a castle on it that I kind of liked, so I was using that for a base inspiration for that castle. And I'm actually having fun with this. It's kind of fun to shape a castle like this. It's a little bit like being a kid with your Lego and just putting it together. I'm gonna try opening some model tools to play a bit around. I have not used these model tools so much. I'm coming more from Blender when it comes to modeling, so I've not deep dive into the modeling tools in Unreal, but I'm gonna try and play a little bit around with it. I like to have this merge function, it makes things easy, and then you can add some quick UV coordinates to your object inside of Unreal, so you don't have to leave Unreal. That makes it really efficient for something like this where you don't have to go too much into detail. So I just did a quick auto UV, and I'm looking a little bit around for different materials that I can use. And of course, when you go close, it looks super weird. But from a distance, it actually looks kind of okay. See, I'm tweaking the camera again now. It's a constant, ongoing, never-ending, or of course it's going to end at some point, but it's a constant process of discovering the shot as I go along. Now I want to put in the dragon. I'll start playing around with that. So I want the dragon to come in over our heads and look big and imposing. So I'm just quickly scanning the animations of it to see what I can use from here. So for now, I'll just use this fly run looping animation. I'm probably going to tweak that later, but for now, that's what I'm using. So I'm just making sure there's a linear speed as it flows through the scene. I know it's kind of close to the end position where we like to have it to end up, but then the way it comes in, I'll have to tweak that to make it a little bit more cinematic. So yeah, I want to have this nice little arc in the movement as it comes in. When you look at the shot from outside the camera, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but inside the camera it works pretty well. See, it's starting to work already. It's pretty cool. I'm still not super convinced about the beginning of the shot, so I'll keep tweaking. I'm tweaking some things here and there to make sure it works well for the camera and the composition, even though from other angles it doesn't make sense. I'm putting the dragon more to the side here because it works better for the composition. There's more balance in the picture. I don't want to have too much on the right side, and then all on the left is completely empty because it's not really balanced out. So I'm just keep tweaking the animation and the shot to keep things balanced. I'm just quickly checking out some of the other animations there is. I'm testing out different animations because it's a little bit repetitive, the looping flight, so I want to add a bit of variation to it. It's annoying me a little bit right now. It's not doing what I want it to do, as you can see. So now that worked. So I'm testing it out how it looks if it kind of came gliding in more and then it flapped its wings. Just testing out how that will work. And I put the play rate down a little bit so it moves a bit slower because it's a massive dragon. So I feel like when it's flapping wings too fast, it loses the idea of weight and size. So I wanted to slow it down a little bit. So you can see I'm playing a little bit around with the keyframes to test out some variation in speed as well, so it's not so linear. So there's a little bit more life to it. I'm just quickly going to drink some water. I moved the keyframes a little bit forward because I wanted to see how it looks if the dragon enters a little bit earlier. See there, for me that feels a bit more like a balanced composition coming in there, instead of just being right on top of the knight as he rides in. And yeah, as I said, it was raw and out process, so you can see the different steps I'm going through. Some things work out, some things don't, but that's part of the process. Like here in this case, I'm trying to see if I can get a faster entry of the dragon. So I'm just tweaking around different keyframes. This reminds me of the good old days when I started doing stop motion, and I was also doing some 2D animation in my early days. And you know, when you sit with a paper and you're just scrolling back and forth with the same 5 drawings, like you keep just scanning through, looping back and forth the same little movement, back and forth again and again. This somehow took me back to those days. So I'm now putting in this massive tundra to see if that surface works for me. And so far it looks like there's a little bit too much going on with the landscape, so the landscapes has too much height, so I'm trying to scale a little bit down so it's a little bit more flat. And again, whatever works in the camera, works in the camera. Right now this shot looks like he's in a circus artist standing on the back of his horse. Could have made the shot a bit funny. So now I'm trying to test out how this looks if we just use this element as some kind of mid-far element, background element, to create a bit of shape there. And that's the beauty of Unreal. Instead of having, if you're painting this, here you can really easily, quickly test things out. And then you see if you like it or not, if it works, and then you see, okay, that doesn't work, but at least I tried. You know, I think there's a lot of value in constantly try and experiment and try things out. That's how we grow, right? And here I accidentally dragged in the material on the landscape instead of dragging in the asset. It's raw, unfiltered, as you can see. Now I'm gonna try out some more set dressing and dress up the shot. I'm not gonna go for building like a full level or landscape. I'm just gonna match anything that I need to just this shot, because this shot is all I need. So as you can see, I keep scaling things up and down. I'm not too concerned about if it is correct or not. I'm just using it as elements to shape whatever I need. Yeah, you can see it start really to take shape. I'm liking where it's going. So I'm just going to keep duplicating these and start populating them around on the scene. It makes a big difference that you have a three-dimensional ground, so there is some kind of shape that the camera can pick up. If it was just a flat shape, you wouldn't really get the sense that the camera is moving. So with some rocks and some shapes, you enhance the idea of the camera moving forward. I'm adding this second rock to add a little bit of variation to the surface. And I keep shaping away, I keep adjusting away. Painting with acids. Now I want to add a bit of water to the surface. I don't want to go too advanced in the shader. I think the default actually works pretty okay for this. And these little puddles of water gives this kind of nice little atmosphere to it. It gives this nice little life to the scene. To break a little bit of the repetition of these rocks. Yeah, completely cheating here with the asset to rotate a little bit, so it's just sticking out behind the water. I'm looking for the easy fog because I want to start shaping some fog in there. I'm using this blueprint from William Foucher. It's quite awesome, this easy fog tool. I wouldn't call it a tool, but this easy fog blueprint. It's pretty awesome. And it's really good for set dressing your scene. I'm just look deving it, art directing it to fit into the style I want. You can just see already, just from placing a few of them, how much of a difference it makes of making the scene feel alive. And you see it becomes very cinematic suddenly. It also reminds me of that scene in Never-Ending Story, the first film. I don't know how many of you have watched that. It's an old classic. There's a scene where he's in this kind of mist with his horse. It has a similar vibe. And yeah, these easy fog elements are not placed in a way that makes sense necessarily. They're art directed exactly to what works for the shot. And I just realized I haven't animated the focus yet, so this is how you do it. And I like to turn on the draw debug focus plane so I can see easily where my focus point is. and I'm just making keyframes. I'm clicking S on my keyboard for setting a keyframe. Usually. It's quite nice that already just with the one directional light and a skylight, we're already pretty far with the lighting. I want to try and play a little bit more around with the sun. As it was before, it was kind of an okay start for me, but I was not 100% happy with where it was. So I want to experiment a little bit more, play around with it, with the bloom, the intensity, and the position of the sun. Also has to make sense for the composition and the weight of where things are in the shot. So I'm also playing around with my fog to adjust the fog to what I need or would like to achieve. I'm just experimenting a little bit as I go along. And I'm playing a little bit around with the size of the sun as well. So this is not a real world, so we can make up any sun size that we want. And now I'm realizing I actually like that it's kind of dark on the ground, and I think it looks really cool like this. But I'm gonna try and keep experimenting, trying different options out. I think when you create, you also have these so-called happy accidents. Sometimes you keep trying things out, and then something magical suddenly happens that wasn't planned, and that's always great. And that never comes if you don't experiment, try things out. So trying out different positions of the sun and see what it does. This is also quite cool with the sun just behind the castle. That's quite nice. But then I don't like in the end that the sun disappears. I think that's a shame. But how it looks in the beginning of the shot is pretty cool. And now it feels a little bit like there's too much attention to the ground and the left side. And then the soldiers in the dark, so we're just looking where we're not supposed to look, and it's not really working well for the shot, so I'll keep moving the sun around, testing having the sun in the corner of the frame like this is not a great composition, but I wanted to see how it looked on the ground. kind of realized if I want the sun to be visible like this the whole shot, I would need to change my camera. And I prefer at this stage not to change the camera, but I'm still trying things out to see if I can get some nice compromise between the two. I'm still not super happy with the sun, but I'm gonna move on to play around with the fog some more. I don't want to get stuck on this element of the sun at the moment. I want to keep moving and keep shaping the shot. I want to try and test out a little bit different surfaces for the water. We're not getting too close to the water, so I don't want to go too much into detail in how it looks. I'm playing a little bit around with the second fog data. So I have a foggy sky and then still some more enhanced fog on closer to the ground level. So yeah, now the sun rays are way too enhanced, way too strong. But it gives me an idea of where the rays are. I'm tweaking things here and there, still on the directional light, to get to a look of it that I like, and intensity. Now I was playing a little bit around with the bloom, doesn't make much of a difference. I'm trying to turn on the light shaft occlusion to see how I like it. Often I actually like to turn that off. Often I prefer how it looks without it on. I'm still testing out how much fog I would like to have in the scene and what works best for me. I'm still not super convinced about the light. I'm thinking about exploring what the next option should be. So for now, I'm gonna go in and look at the horse. felt like the saddle was a little bit too saturated and bright and colorful for this kind of environment and this setting, so I just took down the brightness and the color a bit. I'm just testing out to see how it looks with the armor on. There's an armor as part of this blueprint of the horse, so I want to see how that looks. And then I have to make sure to add the animation to the armor as well. There's better ways of doing this, but for this video, for now, this is okay for me. I'm looking a little bit around for some water effects, because as the horse runs through the landscape, it steps on the water, so I thought it'd be nice to have a little water splash. Don't go too much into detail about it, but just see if I can find a splash that would work. So I have this pack of water splashes. So that's definitely not it. And yeah, that's definitely not it either. That's more like it. But it's a little bit aggressive, this one though. So I like this water splash, and I'm just gonna move it towards the space where I would like to have a water splash up into the frame. I'm gonna add a component 0 to it in the sequencer because I want to trigger at what frame I want it to jump up. So I'm adding a trigger event to it at that frame 71. And I realized that's not the way to do it. I told you this is more raw work process. You're gonna see all the stages I'm going through, trying these things out, figuring out how to work. And sometimes I forget how to do things, and I have to remind myself. So I'm adding a component again. I'm trying to figure out what exactly is how to trigger it to splash at a particular frame. And that was not it, so I'm gonna try something else to remember how exactly to do this. Auto activate and see how that goes. I'm putting that in that frame. And that was not it. I'm trying a trigger event again. I'm still trying to remember exactly how to do this. And I ended up saying, okay, let's add a life cycle track to it. That must be it. There it went, but this is the timing was off, so I'll just have to move it to adjust it so the timing will be right. It's getting close, just have to adjust it a little bit. So now we have this life cycle of when the splash starts and when it ends. I'll just keep tweaking it until I get it where it needs to be. It's getting there. It's still a little bit off. can't see it with the fog on. I'm pressing G button to switch between seeing the lights and not the light objects in the scene, just so you know. I'm just learning how to spell as well. I want to play a little bit around with the grading and the colors in the scene. So I like to do that directly in Unreal as much as I can. With these kind of scenes or these kind of shots, I like to do as much as I can inside Unreal, so I have as little post work as possible. So I'm just doing a bit of test grading and playing around with a bit of colors in the scene. I feel like now with these little bit tweak colors, it's kind of rounding up pretty nicely. I'm still not happy with the sun, but I'll get to that. If you stop and really look at the water, it's not super great, this water, but you know, with the motion blur and all well seen and seeing the whole thing in the bigger picture, it actually works pretty okay as it is. You're not really paying attention to that as a detail. But yeah, the shot is starting to take shape nicely. I could also have focused on trying to do some kind of animation on the reins of the horse, but that's such a little detail that I don't want to focus on at this point. I'm still playing around with that light. I'm not super happy with the sun as it is. And the way this shot organically has evolved, it seems like maybe I should not even have that sun in there at all. But I'm gonna try a few things out. And I can see now if I turn off the directional light, I kind of like this mood. If I turn down the volume scattering intensity, it actually, for me, makes it a shot that is closer to what actually works for me for this shot. It's a completely different vibe, but thinking about what kind of shot it is and the kind of environment we created with the mossy, not mossy, but the wet stones, and this kind of after rain kind of vibe, and this really misty, foggy environment. it's actually gonna work better for me to take out that sun completely. I'm still trying to tweak a few things in there to see if I can make it work with the sun to a point where I'm happy with it. I'm just testing out the rays now, trying to experiment if I can get some interesting rays. So now I'm trying to see how it looks if I have a little bit of sun peeking out. I'm still not 100% convinced about it. I'm gonna play a little bit around with the color of the fog as well. And now with the sun out, I actually kind of like the shot. It seemed to fit the mood a bit more going in this direction. And just kind of hint at a castle in the back. I'm not making it like super clear. And for me, this feels a bit more cinematic and fitting to the vibe. I'm still see if it would work with a little bit of sun in there, but I don't really like it. Kill your darlings, as they say, because I started with this sun in the beginning, so I'm kind of still trying if I can still make it work with the sun in there. But I'm starting to lose the idea of having that sun, but I want to still tweak a few things here and there and try some things out. As you can see, I'm still all over the place with the fog and the light, experimenting here and there and just tweaking a bit here and there and see what happens if I do this, what happens if I do this. Constantly exploring options. I even want to try an HDRI backdrop for the fun of it. Let's see how that's gonna look. I didn't like that at all, but at least I tried. Let's try again. With a killed skylight to see how that works out. This actually works kind of okay with the HDRI. And even when you kill the directional light, it actually worked out pretty cool. I'm trying to reduce the directional light a lot, to keep a little bit of volume light streaks. I want to see if the light shed bloom makes a difference. It doesn't really. And the light self occlusion actually makes quite a massive difference. But it's quite interesting to see how just tweaking a few things and moving a light a little bit here and there, or turning it on and off, how the vibe and the atmosphere of the shot completely changes. I'm not super happy with the light on the ground. This super sharp light in the foreground, it kind of disturbs my eye. I'm still messing around with that directional light. I'm not giving up on that. Not yet. But you know, sometimes you just have to keep things super simple, not overcomplicating things. And it's interesting to see how you just, in the end, you're just tweaking a few details here and there, and it makes like the big difference, like just a tiny tweaks on the fog and the light, to rounding everything together. And I like that in the beginning now that the castle is revealed, and there was kind of like a happy evolvement of the shot, that in the beginning we actually don't see the castle, and then it's kind of revealed through the fog. There's like a nice little addition. I'm now playing a little bit around with the directional light to try and shape some light. I still want to experiment with the directional light to see, you know, maybe I can hard direct the light so there's still some light, but point it where I want it, So there's just light where I want to focus in the shot, and the rest in shadow. But I keep coming back to killing that light, but now I'm still trying. You can see I'm trying to add the light so it just mainly lights the night, because he's like the main focus first, and then the focus shift to the dragon, and then in the end reveal the castle. But that's the great thing about Unreal. In about 2 hours, we created this shot from nothing till actually having something concrete. I'm still playing a little bit around with my fog settings to art direct it through what look I'm going for. And that's also interesting with Unreal. There's so many different ways you can get to the same result. So just keep that in mind when you create. There's never a right or wrong. There's so many different ways you can get to results. I really like this now. We have a fog, and then we're actually revealing a castle. I think that works really well as a storytelling. In scenes or in story, you keep revealing things and keeping the audience or the reader engaged. So you see, there's some fog, there's a castle. Want to keep art directing the fog a little bit, and how they get into the camera. All I'm focused on is what works specifically for the camera and from this angle. This is not going to work from any other angle than from this camera. And I like this journey of the camera moving through the fog. And it's getting there to a result that I'm quite happy with. I can keep going and start tweaking more and more tiny little details. But for the sake of this video, I think this proves the point. And with a little bit of final look and grading on this, I think this will work quite well. Going from all this sunlight and all these lights, we end up with a kind of grayish, moody shot. I still have to tweak that water space though, but overall I'm happy with how it looks. Thank you for watching. I enjoyed taking you through this process and showing you how I create this kind of shots completely from beginning to the end. And the purpose of this video is just wanted to show you how this creative process works for me, and to see how creation is basically just a step by step, from one step to another step to another step, and you just keep taking one step at a time and keep exploring and keep evolving through the shot, and then you end up with something great in the end. And you can actually go from an initial idea and you can actually end up going in completely funny, strange directions you didn't anticipate, and you end up where you end up. But I think it's important that you allow yourself this process when you create, and not be stuck on some kind of initial idea of a shot or a story or anything you create. It has to be this certain way. Allow yourself to explore through the process and be present in the moment of just creating, and then allow it just to flow. Thank you.